Metroid Dread? This game isn't scary.
Finn!
The game takes place after the events of Metroid Fusion, my personal favorite Metroid game. Essentially, after ridding the planet of these parasitic bacteria called the X-Parasite, the Galactic Federation got a notice that these little might still be out there. The Federation launched these walking Roombas called Emmys? EMMIs? I'm just gonna call them androids, I don't know. They sent them out to planet ZDR for investigation, but they didn't hear back from them, so it's your job as the alpha gamer girl to look and find answers. I like the simplicity of the plot, but there are some story elements later on that if you didn't play Fusion, it can be confusing for new players. But it did a overall nice job for people jumping into this iteration. Now note, this is a review, but it isn't a review. This is just my opinion on the game and why Samus is the baddest chick in history. Prove me wrong. Now I have not played many modern Metroid games because I heard that they sucked as or their mid-tier gaming experiences, especially from most reviewers. But I am glad to say that my expectations were well exceeded because this game has another robot inside that it didn't mention called the FAH. Cause it's fun as hell! Oh man. The only Metroid games that I have played are Fusion, Zero Mission, and Super Metroid. Fusion being my favorite by far because it felt the most accessible to me. Besides the cryptic ass level design like this example, how would I know to put a bomb there? Fusion's linearity for the Game Boy Advance worked in its favor because it was portable, and Metroid Dread favors linear level design as well as some slight exploration. So I think it also works great for the finished product that it is and for the convenience of the Switch itself. Though apparently Mr. God of War game designer David over here doesn't think it is good level design.
And shoot the ceiling. What? Why? Why? There's no indication on the map. There's no indication visually. There's no indication visually. There's no indication visually.
And Lucas and I both agree that he is an idiot, so it all checks out. Link in the description to that video. I would say about 80% of the time it is pretty linear and you do know where you are supposed to go, but the other 20% is exploration. So I think it has that good mix for mobile and home console experience, but more about that later. But let's just say that it leads you onto the next zone really well. Planet ZDR itself has a variety of locations and sections to visit, so I appreciate the scenery, though the issue with this setting and environment is just how much it blends in sometimes. I think the game is visually amazing, and actually for the most part it runs well, but there is this blandness to the game and style to most areas except like the marine lab or the forest area, and it seems like I'm not the only one that shares this opinion. In Fusion, the laboratory and sector was great because it split into sectors and each area was its own thing, but there's a sort of vibe in Dread where I feel like it kind of all melts together and areas do lack some character to them. Luckily later on events do happen. Artaria gets frozen up, there are a lot of set pieces, things blow up, boom boom bang bang. But I would have liked to have some more iconic land pieces to remember each area by. Now let's talk gamer time. I love the movement and controls in this game because it makes you feel like a badass when you counter or slide or do something sick. It has tight movement, which for some people, you know, they might not like, but for me, it's probably my favorite physics engine from Metroid game to date. One thing that isn't for me though is the counter system. I understand that other modern Metroid games have this mechanic as well, and I've seen a lot of mixed opinions. This being my first modern Metroid experience, I now understand the divide on this mechanic. It looks and feels cool, but after learning some of the timings on the regular enemies especially, the game becomes so easy and it just ends up becoming a game of counter, counter, counter. It almost feels like a different game. You can shoot enemies normally, but it just always takes too long. Some of the timings for the bosses are a bit harder luckily, and usually their fights require a bit more thinking, but the game really wants you to use these counters. We even got quick time event cutscenes during boss fights, which are spectacles, and I love how they look. Pretty cinematic and awesome, but they're almost really triggered to end fights quicker and do more damage. I don't see that being a bad thing for like speedrunning and stuff like that, but I feel like people can cheese this mechanic a lot. Fortunately, bosses in this game are insanity. That's awesome. I'll get to the enemies that I don't like later, but Corpius, Z57, and of course Ravenbeak are a joy to fight, especially because they complement the controls. I do think that it is a shame that Ravenbeak didn't make many appearances in the game. I felt like he could have had a bigger impact on myself personally, but I love his final fight. He kicked my ass a couple times, but I think it was the perfect challenge to end off the game. I mentioned earlier that the game was quite linear, which may be a bummer to some people, but because it considers into the portable aspect of the Switch and for on-the-go playtime, I think that is very accessible for a lot of people. As a home console experience and a home player myself, I do wish that it was a bit longer to fit both demographics, handheld and home players, but I think it did a good enough job. My first playthrough only ran me about 6 to 7 hours, and it is content packed. I feel like it could have slowed down in some areas, especially the end when you're constantly getting upgrades and you don't fully utilize all of them, except maybe once or twice to get to Ravenbeak, or, you know, for some extra goodies, of course. So I do feel like some abilities were wasted a little bit, like the power bomb. You use that like once or twice, come on. Now let's skip to Metroid music. I love Metroid music, and the remixes and the redone songs in this game, insanely good. Brinstar and Samus's theme, I think these are probably my favorite iteration of these songs. But for the original soundtrack itself, I do feel like it is just okay. Some themes are just filler and atmospheric. I think overall it's all atmospheric really, and it just fits the mood, but I would never listen to it on its own. Now if you put some of this in there, we got ourselves a masterpiece. Now I really haven't talked about the other threat yet, the androids. I like them and I don't. I like that they're like a genuine threat and like a one-hit kill. They catch you, it's game over. You gotta dodge them and it's like everything's fast-paced about it. But later on when they gain more abilities like ice beams and stuff like that, they'd be freezing you from 4,000 miles away, and it can be very annoying getting to the same game over screen. And speaking of enemies that I kind of don't like, this enemy I don't like, the boss for the Omega Cannon. You're literally fighting a blue brain that shoots slow ass lasers at you, and you fight them like 7 times. It's repetitive and the only real enemy that I don't like in the game. But the Omega Cannon go burst. Now, overall, my experience was positive. I'm glad my favorite Metroid game got a sequel, but it also stands on its own, and I think that is its greatest strength. It incorporates many quality of life changes to accommodate the Switch to, well, the Switch. You get it? It's a short ass game though, but when you think about it, throughout your 6 to 10 hour playthrough, the whole experience is pure action adventure Metroidvania at its finest. There is a reason that it won the Game Award for Best Action Adventure Game for 2021. Now, I don't really have a rating system to rate this game, so I'm just gonna answer the question of whether or not you should buy it or you shouldn't. So is it a no, yes, or maybe? And the answer is definitely yes. If you wanted a more definitive score, I'm thinking more like 8.5 out of 10. This is some good soup. This game doesn't have Ridley? 2 out of 10. Hey guys, this is Billy from the Musashi Boys. Hopefully everyone's having a great new year. Welcome to 2022. We're going to be uploading a lot more stuff, so look forward to that. We had an overwhelming amount of support last year, so we were very thankful for that, so thank you so much. Hopefully you guys come along with us on this journey to the road of greatness, you know. I think this is going to be one of the first videos released this year, so I'm pretty stoked to see how it turns out. But and if you guys just want to skip this portion of the video, it's just kind of me just rambling and saying my thank yous, and to look forward to us this year. And we look forward to the returning members and new members of Musashi Boys coming in this year as well. So thank